Hello and welcome to this episode of Permission to Leap. Today I have with me the awesome Karen Ricks. Karen is a Christian wife, world schooling mom, and a nomadic chef. Teaching for more than 21 years, she has been a Montessorian since her own preschool days. She holds Montessori teaching certificates for guiding children from infancy to elementary school. She has cooked in professional restaurants and in commercial kitchens on 4 different continents over the last decade. After 10 years of teaching in central Japan, where Karen and her family owned and operated their own international Montessori school, they sold it and began the nomadic life, full-time travel. Karen spreads her message of embracing a slow food lifestyle, a lifelong love of learning, and education for peace by teaching people of all ages how to cook for themselves and why they need to share that gift with those they love. Thank you so much for joining me, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. You have been literally all over the world. And obviously, it's not something that's a traditional lifestyle, especially when you're raising kids. So I'm wondering, first of all, what is your definition of permission?
Wow. Well, especially with a young child. So permission to me conjures up these ideas of asking, Mommy, can I do this? Mommy, can I do that? Mommy, please. Permission, it's like asking for someone else's consent to do what you want to do.
Ooh. Okay, so piggybacking off of that, I'm curious, how do you give yourself permission if your definition is asking somebody else for consent?
That's a process that I have found myself working through more and more over the last decade. And I think really since my husband and I decided to leave the traditional lifestyle that we had been leaving in the United States almost a decade ago, picking up and moving our family to the other side of the world, it was really the beginning of deciding to give ourselves permission to do the things that we wanted to do. All of the unconventional sort of things
Right.
that we were interested in pursuing, instead of just being that weird thing, it really has become more a part of who we are and how we choose to define ourselves. And we're finding that's more and more important. The bigger you leap, the bolder you go, the more wild and crazy things you want to do.
Right, that's very important. When you're going out to live your dreams is, not asking other people for permission, because I find that the more you ask for permission, the less people are willing to give it.
Absolutely true.
And for you
to wait for people to give me permission for the things that I'm doing now, I'd never be.
Right.
That's right.
So you have a passion for education and for cooking, and you have a way, you and I have talked on several occasions about your parenting style, which I absolutely adore. Some people might consider this a bad thing, but you remind me of my grandmother. It's like that old school love from the kitchen, which I think is lost a lot, in the way families operate these days. How did you find your passion for these two things and for bringing them together?
Oh, goodness. Well, when you talk about finding this passion, I think back to some of the earliest days of cooking myself
Right.
as a child. And yeah, I've always really loved food and loved cooking. I can remember doing it as young as 6 years old and cooking a meal for the family in the kitchen. So in some ways, it feels like it's always been a part of me.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I grow, especially as a teacher and as a parent, the more, like you said with your grandmother, the more I want to be able to share those kinds of experiences and create those memories with the other people in my life that I love. I've been able to do that with my students at our school in Japan and with other children and families, new friends that we're making everywhere we go. And it's just such an amazing experience. It's like you said, it's almost a dying art. And as a teacher, I feel like there is so much that we all can learn by getting together and getting our hands dirty in the kitchen. And I don't want
Yes.
that to be a dying art. I would bring that back.
I love it. So as you were putting these two things together, I know you talked about bringing it into your classroom at the Montessori school, and I know you do a lot of it with your son. How do you like bring that balance? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're kids, and people think, because they're kids, they can't do certain things. The stove is too hot, the knives are too sharp. How do you give yourself permission to raise your child a different way?
Well, as I said, I think a lot of it stems from what I was raised with and how I grew up. As you mentioned in the introduction, I went to Montessori school as a child myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so having that foundation in my early education really kind of set the norm. And instead of being here like everybody else's norm, maybe it was here. But for me, that was normal. And the Montessori training that I have done in the decades since, working to understand more
Mm-hmm.
of how young children really learn best, and just observing the children who've been in my care for so many years, I've had the opportunity to witness so many of these amazing moments of epiphany that happen when the children have these squishy, messy, doughy things running through their
Yes.
fingers down their faces. You know what I mean?
Yep, sure do.
You talk about the fact that it's unusual or different, or people have a lot of hesitation because children shouldn't do this or can't do that. And in a lot of ways, I am very, very thankful for my Montessori training, which is really kind of turning education in that traditional sense on its head.
Yes.
The Montessori system, I know you're familiar with it because we've discussed that before, but it really is a system of hands-on learning, a learning experience that involves all the five senses. And because I love to cook and because I love sharing those food experiences with people, it just made sense to me because food also involves all of our senses.
Yes.
I really am just passionate about bringing those two things together so that people can enjoy the things that they're learning, just like we enjoy a good meal.
Exactly. I love it. So you've been on this process, this Montessori journey, really your entire life. And then you started your own school. And then you left. Like, you closed your school and you decided you were going to be a nomad. Like, how did you come to that decision? And then was there a point where you had to love yourself through the process because outside forces weren't really on your side?
It was both a beautiful, exciting thing and also a really kind of difficult and sad thing to make that decision to leave this life that my family and I had established in that little town in Japan for about 10 years. When we made the announcement that we were going to be closing our school, that we were going to be not just leaving town, but leaving the country, it was kind of tough news, and there were tears and a lot of shock and surprise. But there was so much that went into that decision. We had
Right.
been running our school for almost 6 years at the time that we made that announcement, and our son had literally grown up within those four walls.
Right.
And we had just come to realize that it was, well, to use the food term, it was unsustainable. We loved our school and the community that we had built and all of the amazing things that we got to do. But we were also often working 12 to 14-hour days, 6 and sometimes 7 days a week. And starting the morning, first thing, and my son waking up and we're already at school, and him going to bed at night and we were still at school. As much as we loved it, it
Wow.
just wasn't something that we could continue to do long term. And the passion from which we began that process was
Mm-hmm.
still there. It's still there now. It's what's fueling what we're continuing to do. But we came to the recognition we just couldn't continue to do it in the same way. And so when this opportunity arose to go to cooking school in Italy, it was like the
Wow.
hand of God reaching down and saying, you know what, it's time to take a step in a new direction. And it was completely unfathomable. It was almost out of the blue that this
Right.
opportunity dropped into our laps, but it was the sort of thing that we couldn't possibly imagine passing up either. And so many other incredible things have happened since we left, really, from Japan to Italy, and we have just been continuing along that unbelievable path ever since.
I love it. What I really love is that you were able to find a way to satisfy your family needs as well as, continue on your own journey and do it in your own way, which I find like really admirable. How did you determine how you were going to profit from this passion? Because now you have Our Kitchen Classroom, which is absolutely fabulous. And I'll put links to all of that down below. But, you have this passion and you're able to profit from it. And some people don't think that, their passion is a logical step to making money. So how were you able to do that?
Well, as I said, in all honesty, this really doesn't feel so much like something separate from what we were already doing as much as it is a continuation, just in a slightly different manner. And one of the biggest things that I learned during that time in Japan while we were running our school was that I have these gifts to share.
Yes.
And the profit comes into sharing. That's really what it is. I loved teaching before my son was ever born. And when we made the decision to open our school, he was only 4 months old. It was way before I ever thought we were going to do this. But I knew before he was even conceived that I wanted to be able to not just have a school, but to create the sort of learning environment in which I wanted to raise my own child. The way that we were able to make it profitable was really to just open the doors to other people, invite them to come and share in the experience. And that's really kind of what we're doing now with Our Kitchen Classroom. We are world schooling, we're traveling here and there, and through the blog, through the things that we share on our Facebook page, through the little notes and snippets that I send to our loyal fans in the email list, it's really just kind of opening the doors to our lives, to our kitchen, whether it's here in Australia or 6 months ago in Mexico or whatever, and saying, come on in, see what we're doing, you can do this too, and sharing how people can embark on that journey.
So you've done all of this. You've been around the world. You've cooked on more continents than I've been on personally. So I'm curious, what's next for you? What's your next big thing?
Oh my goodness. It's funny because if you had asked me a year ago, I wouldn't have envisioned any of this. So in some ways, I'm like, I don't know, because the next year could bring in even more things that I haven't even imagined yet. But
Right.
I do have the pre-order page for my first book. This process of bringing these stories to life in this way has been so energizing. I feel like I'm already elbow deep in not just the next one book or two books, but the next series. I'm getting feedback already that people want to hear more and get more Italian recipes. So that 3 months that we spent in Sicily, that could be not just another book, but an Italian series.
Wow.
And people who want to know more about the Mexican food that we learned about, and even how that's different from the Mexican or Tex-Mex that my husband and I grew up with in Southern California or wherever else we were in the United States. I feel like that could be a whole nother series.
Definitely.
But the more closely I work with my son, and the more we are learning in this process together, the more about sharing that experience for parents like me with young children like I have who want to be able to reach them at their level. And so I think the next big thing might actually be a children's book.
Oh, wow. That's great. I'm looking forward to that one. Sign me up.
Thank you. I love to hear excitement about these ideas because I feel like I have 10 million of them. And my husband, he is getting used to hearing me spout off with all these crazy ideas. Okay, yeah, you can do that too. Oh, you can do that too. I have no doubt that you will. You go right ahead and do it.
I love it.
I love it too. I could not possibly imagine doing any of this without his loving support and without the enthusiasm that my son shares. It really and truly is a family project.
I love it. So our kitchen classroom is, I guess what I see it as is it's your way of teaching your son, but it's a family endeavor. And it's like you've brought the entire world in there. So it's like everybody's kitchen classroom. And I love the experience of being in that space with you from the other side of the world. It's so much fun to watch.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you're having a good time. And that's exactly the feeling we want to create. It's not just my kitchen. It really is our kitchen. And we want everybody to feel welcome, to get involved, to just get in and get their hands dirty, because that's the fun part.
So where can everybody find you?
Okay, well, the first and best place is to drop by ourkitchenclassroom.com. That's where we are keeping the repository of the really big lessons, the juicy, meaty stuff that we're doing. We are also putting little snippets here on our Facebook page, which is also Our Kitchen Classroom. And when you visit our website, I love getting email. I mean, like personal notes too. So we love for people to just reach out through the contact page. You can drop us a line or send us an email, which is on that contact page, and just say hi. Tell us how you found us, what really excites you, what you like to cook, what you think you'll never be able to cook that you need help with. We are all about diving into those challenges and making it happen.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your passion and your love for teaching the world how to bring cooking back in style, and for helping us all teach our children lessons that have become a dying art, and for showing them that food is not a bad thing.
Oh, no.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisha.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.